Yes. And I know I did a podcast reviewing this 30 for 30 with Tommy Morrison, but I listened to it. You know what? Kind of sucked, to be quite honest with you. I fumbled over some words, and I just didn't like the way I did it. So I wanted to do a video, kind of go in depth, and kind of give Tommy a little more attention that he deserved. For me, yes, obviously big fan, and this video might come off as me being a fanboy. So be it. I really don't give a shit. By the way, and you really can't tell, let's Vitaly Klitschko. Well, that way. Anyway, the reason I'm telling you that, huge boxing fan, because I've already had a couple people, especially with the podcast. I thought you were a music critic. Oh, I didn't know you were into boxing. Oh, I suppose you like UFC too. Not really. I'm a boxing fan, and I'm not even going to get into this flag shit with the kneeling with the football players. I've argued that shit till the cows come home. I'm done with that. But just like music, I'm a fan of boxing, and it's not like I'm talking about boxing 24 hours a day, but Tommy Morrison was pretty important to me growing up. So I'm going to talk about it. Stick to music. No. Anyway. I also, and this was earlier today, I seen a couple reviews of this, and by the way, that 30 for 30 is on tonight on TV for the first time. I've already watched it 5 times on the website. They've been streaming it for about 2 weeks now, and a couple guys on YouTube were telling me that they won't let it watch it. They can't. The application, when they click on it, they said nothing plays. I had no problems watching it. So if you did have problems watching it, you can watch it tonight, 7 o'clock. I believe that's Central Standard Time, so 8 Eastern. ESPN. Be there. It's worth it. Anyway, the reviews, the 2 reviews that I read, they were saying it's well done. We like the way it's presented. We wish they would have went more in depth on some of his fights. I kind of agree with that. They could have added 2 or 3 more fights to just kind of explain his fighting style. Well, they explained his fighting style, but they could have shown it more of why was his power amazing and all that. But what really bothered me, okay, and the fanboy's going to come out right now. At the end of this, they're like, but in the end, did this need to be 90 minutes? Yeah, it needed to be 90 fucking minutes. It's almost like because of what happens towards the end, and we'll get into that, like he didn't deserve to have all this time or attention. You know, maybe 45 minutes would have been sufficient enough. Well, fuck you. Okay, the guy made some mistakes, but it doesn't mean he was a piece of shit. I don't know, just the way they stated it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. You know what? Let me do the proper review right here. All right. It kind of starts out. It doesn't kind of start out. It starts out with Tommy. Shows him, I'm Tommy Morrison, and I'm going to the top. You know, he's doing his little boxing thing. It's funny because I just mentioned the flag. He's throwing punches in front of the flag, and they talk to his mom a little bit, and she mentions that she already had 2 kids. Tommy wasn't planned, and she even says there's nights that she cried at night because she had him. He wasn't playing, and you get right off the bat, you know, they were obviously a family, didn't have a lot of money. That's definitely the impression you get. No, not the Mighty Mighty Boss Stones either. Anyway, then they talk to a girlfriend. Well, she ends up being a girlfriend. They went to school together, Dawn Freeman, and Hey, buddy, for watching this. Dawn, don't call me Tammy Freeman. There's a name from the past for you. Anyway, she says, I was fascinated with him. You can tell she liked him. He liked her. They just, for whatever reason, did go out. She gets into that later. He had a tattoo. He's like 10. And she said, look at his arms. He's got like these little boxing gloves tattooed on his arm. And then it was his mom. And she says, yeah. He asked me, he wanted a tattoo, and I explained to him that, once you get this, it stays on there forever. And he's like, okay. So she said, you got the needle, and it did it herself. The kid's like 10. I'm just picturing my mom. Hey, Mom, will you give me a tattoo? Fuck, no. Go back to your room. Play with your stupid little toys. Ask me for a tattoo. Slap the taste out of your mouth, dummy. Anyway. They point to the fact that they all fought. Tommy's, I don't know if they really mentioned his dad, but the uncles, his brother, and they would all fight in these things they call smokers. It's like a one-night event. And when he was in 8th grade, this tells you the situation. He quit school to work construction for a year. That's how poor they were. And you get the feeling, especially in that area, Oklahoma, Arkansas. He was born in Arkansas, but then he lived mainly in high school in Oklahoma. That's where he went to high school anyway. But he quit to work construction with his dad, and then he started fighting in all these tough man competitions. And his uncle was talking about it. He's 15 years old. And I'm going to say something here, and then I'll explain it so people don't get all crazy. It's almost like, well, it's exactly like Mike Tyson. You hear all the stories. He was like 13, 14 years old, and he's beating up 30-year-old men. I'm not comparing them. I'm just telling you, there's a lot of similarities in their life. So, 15, and these tough man competitions, you have to be at least 21. So, his uncle said we gave him an alias, and they show it, man. He's like beating the shit out of these guys that are 25, 26 years old. He's fucking 15. So, obviously, there's something different. Like, this guy is a unique talent. He's 15 years old. Can you imagine that? You're like 25, 26, you're with your girlfriend and say, hey, look at this kid over there. He thinks he's so hot and all the young girls like him. Hey, you got a problem? Boom! Just fucking knock you out with one punch. And your girlfriend, oh, I like him younger. Bye. I'm just saying. Anyway. Now we know. Obviously. Well, he does go back to school. Alright. Goes back to high school. And then when he gets out, of course, he's going to be a fighter. And he hooks up with this guy named John Brown. And they talk to this guy a lot. He's like the manager, trainer guy. And then Tony Holden, who he's a big part of this 30 for 32. And they're the ones that really break down all the stuff outside of the ring. But his mom said, because what he did is he moved to Kansas City, and she said, whatever you do, listen to your coaches and don't get all leave the women alone, basically is what she said. Because even at that age, he could pretty much get any chick he wanted. And in the end, I'm kind of fast forwarding here. In the end, this guy just could not say no. And when I get towards the end, couldn't give my opinion about all this shit. And when I do, I know everybody say, "Oh well, boy, you're a fucking fanboy." It's just something I need to do anyway. And yes, I'm reading off a paper here because I want to make sure I cover everything that I did in the podcast. This will be the best review of this documentary, or at least that's the goal. Anyway, so he gets the nickname, the Duke, and supposedly, and he tells this to Tony Holden and his manager, that his dad was like a distant cousin of John Wayne, and he took that nickname and ran with it. And it was funny because Tony Holden says, I don't even think he was related to John Wayne. And he said the media didn't even investigate it. They really didn't. They just saw that name, and he said it worked. Because, it, you know, once you see that nickname, the Duke, and especially with older white guys, this fascination with John Wayne. Not me personally, but, you know, older white guys in the Midwest. John Wayne! Oh my God! The Duke! Yeah! I'm not a big Western guy. I never was, but hey, not hating. It's alright. It's just the family. We're a loud family. We're not Italian, but we act Italian. We eat a lot of pasta. And every once in a while, I'll put on a suit. I think I mentioned this before, and I'll act, and I'll talk like Ray Liotta. It's fun. But really, I'm not even close to sound like him. And then Mom act like she's the head of the family. She'll act like a female version of Paul Sorvino. What was his daughter's name? Mira. Okay, I'm getting really sidetracked. Anyway. Then we get to the part of the film about Rocky V. And this is a really cool part. Tommy's fighting all these people. And I think he mentions it in 1 year. He fought 19 people. 19! And he even said in there, he said, that's unheard from a heavyweight. Which, he's right. That's crazy. And I get it. If you're fighting 19 guys in a year, a lot of those guys aren't that good. They're punching bags. But you have to give a little bit of respect for any guy that steps in the ring. You gotta have some kind of balls. Because you're like, good chance I'm going to get my ass kicked. But a lot of these guys probably need the money. Anyway, Frank Stallone, Sylvester Stallone's brother, he noticed Tommy Morrison. He said, this guy's fighting on ESPN all the time. He's well spoken, he's good looking, and they were having a hard time finding an actor to play the part of Tommy Gunn, which we all know that Tommy Morrison ended up playing. But it's kind of funny because he told us, Frank Stallone told his brother, this is the guy, you gotta see him. You know, he talks like his brother and he sounds just like him. It's kind of funny. And there you get it. He's in that movie. And they talked to his friend, and he said, I went out there for a couple days on the set watching, and he's like, he walked around like he owned the set. And he said it wasn't cocky or arrogant, just confident, like he knew what he was doing. And of course the movie itself, it got terrible reviews. All the movie critics hated it. Guess whose favorite Rocky movie it is? For me. Yeah. I know it wasn't a great movie, but for a guy that's never acted before, and then, of course, you know, in the movie, he kind of turns out to be a dick, and he beats up Sly Stallone's buddy there, his brother-in-law, Paulie. Remember the part Sly Stallone goes, hey, you knocked him down. Why don't you try knocking me down? And then we get the epic fight at the end. And it did. I know it was cheesy. I loved it, you know. And I'm like 19 when this is happening, and I had just discovered Tommy Morrison too. So this is huge for me too. I'm like, oh my God, the guy that I watched fight all these guys on ESPN, now he's in the movie. I'm hooked. I'm hooked immediately. I'm going to make this very clear. Because I had a couple guys, oh yeah, of course. great white height. Of course, you're going to love the white guy. There have been a lot of white guys that have sucked in fighting, especially in boxing. And there are so many black fighters I respect for. Some of my all-time favorites: Thomas Hearns, Marvin Hagler, Mark Breland. I always really liked Mark Breland because he was like the black version of me. Real tall, skinny, looked like he weighed about 120 pounds, and he could knock people out. That's my boy right there. But yes, there was a mystique, and especially at the time, I'm thinking, wow, do we really have a white guy that can go in there and mix it up with these unbelievable heavyweights, especially in the early 90s. Think about that. Like Tyson, Riddick Bowe, Evander Holyfield, Ray Mercer. Even like the middle of the road guys were good, like Burt Cooper. It was a really good time for heavyweight boxing. And then I got Tommy Morrison, a guy that I'm like, oh, and I talked about him so much to the point of like, Jesus, dude, what? You want to give him a blowjob? Fuck, okay, we get it. Tommy Morrison, it's a fighter, big fucking deal. But yeah, we all have our things we like and things we don't like. So finally, after the movie and his record, I think he gets 26-0. And Al Bernstein, big time boxing guy. He's been in the business for a long time. You've heard him do fights, commentary. Good follow on Twitter too. He is to me anyway. Big puncher, right? He's like, this is a guy that comes to fight, and he's gonna try to knock you out, and that's an exciting style. People loved it. I know I did. And they don't talk about a lot. They mention a little bit about him developing a left hook, and that really was his bread and butter punch. He could knock you out with that one punch, and that's really a unique talent, regardless. And I remember there's a clip too of him with sitting beside Joe Frazier, and he kind of pats Tommy on the shoulder. It's like, I heard this guy almost has a left hook as good as mine. Yeah, kind of a cool little thing there. I thought it was awesome. Joe Frazier giving Tommy Morrison a lot of respect there. Anyway, so we get it. The matchup. Gold medalist, fought in the Olympics, Ray Mercer versus Tommy Morrison. Huge fight. Especially for both of these guys at this point in their career. And I'd not really seen Ray Mercer fight, but I knew he had a chin. And I'm telling you, to this day, probably one of the greatest chins of all time. I'm telling you, there is a fight, and when you get done watching this, you can go check it out, where he fought Shannon Briggs. I don't know when this was, 4, 5, 6 years ago maybe. Somebody got paid off. Like Ray Mercer, all you see is his head's turned away from the camera, and then Shannon Briggs kind of punches him in the side of the face, and you see Ray Mercer just fall to the mat. Come on. Remember when he fought Vladimir Klitschko? Well, maybe you don't. This is before they found out that Vladimir didn't have the greatest chin. He just pulverized Ray Mercer for 6 rounds. And I'm telling you, he landed some huge shots. This guy didn't go down. Tommy clobbered him, and he said it. He hit me harder than I've ever been hit. But that fight, I'm telling you, go check it out. Briggs, Mercer, come on, Ray. I just have too much respect for him as a fighter to know that wasn't him fighting Shannon Briggs. If he needed the money, I'm good with that. Seriously, I know. Boxing's a dirty sport. Shit happens. But Shannon Briggs is not the fighter that Ray Mercer is. Seriously. Anyway. And so they kind of mention it. Tommy, this quick rise. In a couple of years, he's in a movie. He's beating up all these guys, getting ready to fight Ray Mercer, and they talk about it like this quick ascension. Here we go again. But calm down. Like Mike Tyson. And I never, ever said that Tommy Morrison is on the same level as Mike Tyson. He could have been, though. Alright? He could have been. Like, just throw out a year. 1992. Tyson versus Morrison. That's an awesome fight because they're both going to come into the ring. They're going to try to devastate each other. And good chance that Tyson lands a bomb and knocks Tommy out. But you know what? Wouldn't it have been fun to see that? Because there's a chance, man. Tommy lands that left hook. And once we seen Tyson older, when people figured out, well, you get him past the 6th or 7th round, you're in deep doo-doo. Tommy would have had to make it past that 4th or 5th round. Could he? Probably not. But what a fight that would have been. Anyway, this is when they start talking about the partying, and especially in Kansas City, this one main bar, they would call the management team, say, hey, gotta come get Tommy, he's passed out. And it kind of irritates me a little bit, a couple of these friends that they talk to, because just the way they kind of laughed it off. But he said he hated being alone, and then it showed pictures of him with like 15, 16 guys, and the one friend even says, like, you didn't have to worry about getting out your wallet because Tommy paid for everything. Wasn't that fucking nice? Because none of you guys were around when shit got bad for him. Trust me, I'm gonna get into that too. Also, the woman thing. And they're like, he was like a rock star. He was. Everywhere he went, there was a woman, flinging themselves at him. And the one friend said he couldn't say no. He couldn't say no. And the first time I seen it, I was like, why would you say that? He said, honestly, if it's true, because we hear this thrown out all the time, could he have been a sex addict? Maybe. Possibility. Because I always used to say guys use that as an excuse to cheat or whatever, but he could not say no. He really couldn't. Figures right in the middle of my show. Stupid. Why do I leave it on? That should be my next question, right? Why the fuck do you leave that thing on? Anyway. And they talk in this documentary to these two women. They both have the same first name. Dawn Freeman. Dawn Brady is her name now. And basically, he seen both women. And pretty much both of them, in his mind, he's like, you're my woman. And then go see the other one. You're my woman. Or, what's a better way of saying that? Like, you're my main woman. There you go. And his mom says, I told him these two are going to fight out about each other. And I guess he didn't give a shit. And so the whole thing with that, and then they start telling you the whole woman thing. Why is he got to have all these women? Why can't he say no? And they talked to his brother, and he said, I went to a dance when I was 13, and my dad was there, and this girl wanted me to go outside, and he said, I told her no, I'm here with my girlfriend. And his dad said, and his dad must have been a chaperone or something, his dad said, if I ever see you turn down a woman like that again, I will beat your ass. And he said it was just implanted in our brain. And he said, all that stuff, growing up, it's learned behavior. And he's right. Yeah. And just didn't paint the greatest picture of his dad. And the mom said that's where Tommy got it, was from his dad. And so we get to the Ray Mercer fight, and you're hearing all this stuff, the partying, like how focused is he on this shit? Well, in the weigh-in, and they talked to Ray Mercer about this, his management says, hey, his back, it's all broke out. It's got blackheads on his back. And I've heard this before too. That's a sign of injecting steroids. And his management said, listen, all you got to do is get to the 4th or 5th round, he'll be out of gas. And even Tony Holden, the manager guy, promoter, he said, we told him all the time, don't do those. It's just like a short burst of energy and you're going to run out of gas. That's exactly what happened. And that's when Ray Mercer said, look, he hit me harder than I've ever been hit in a fight. He was trying to take me out. And you can watch it. Like, this was what I was talking about before with Ray Mercer and that chin. I don't know how he survived those shots. Dude had a fucking chin of steel. I'm telling you. And then in that, I believe it's the 5th round, that KO. Most brutal KO I've ever seen. I remember I watched it. I was out gallivanting across the United States being a vagabond. My mom had videotaped the fight for me. And I remember the night it happened, I didn't want to know. I wanted to watch the fight before I found out anything. So I called Mom. I said, did you tape that fight? Yeah. How'd he do? Oh, he did good. And I could tell, and I was like, fuck. Go ahead, tell me, Mom. Honey, I don't know. It's so crazy, like, the way Mom is. And it's funny, because I know she knew how important this fighter was to me. This guy I had never met, but just so fascinated with, right? Honey, he really did. He did really good until the 5th round. And I said, why? What happened? Honey, he got destroyed. I don't know how else to tell you. She thought, I think Ray Mercer almost killed him. And then I seen it. I'm just like, holy fuck. I want to make another thing very clear. That referee, fuck him. I'm not blaming Ray Mercer. You gotta remember, these guys, they're not like us. They're different. Alright? If you're a boxer, that's what you want. You don't stop punching until somebody tells you to stop. So I'm not blaming him. But that referee, like, why are you 50 feet away? The minute that he's out, you can see he's out, he takes 2 or 3 shots that he shouldn't have taken. Once again, not blaming Ray Mercer. Ray Mercer predicted that, though, didn't he? So, we know. At this point in the documentary, we got a guy that's got some talent, but he cannot stay focused on training and boxing. He's just got the things outside the ring, and they tell you that. That's part of the trailer for it. His biggest fight was outside the ring. It really was. It was women. It was he couldn't say no. And so after the Mercer fight, takes some time off, moves away from Kansas City, which was a good idea. And he comes back. He starts getting some fights under his belt, and then he fights Joe Hip. And let me tell you something. I didn't know this until the documentary, but John Brown says in the 2nd round he broke both hands, and then later on he broke his jaw, and he stopped Joe Hip in the 9th round. And Joe Hip, they talked to him and he's like, hey, I thought he was a good fighter, good speed, power. And because people always give me shit, well, no chin. Well, maybe it wasn't his strongest thing. Okay, I'll give you that. But a guy with a glass jaw doesn't get it broke and still fight, and both hands be broke. That's a tough motherfucker. I don't care. Yeah. So there you go. The fanboy review continues. I know. And then he ends up fighting George Foreman. And by far, that's the best fight of his career. That's the best he's ever looked. And we know that was George Foreman's comeback. And he was old, but you know what? He was still clobbering people. He fucked up Michael Moore. Say what you want to about Michael Moore. Was he the greatest heavyweight of all time? No, but he was a champion at one point. George Foreman knocked his ass out. And Tommy Morrison, that's the best he's ever looked. 12 rounds, moving, using the jab, throwing bombs, and so we're feeling good at this point in the documentary. He's kind of come back. He's made a comeback. Guy gets clobbered like that, gets knocked out, and he comes back. Not easy to do, right? And then they go into the thing about the whole stuff outside of the ring. Why is he still doing this shit? Why can't he say no? And he talks about, and I never knew this until the documentary, his mom was on trial for murder. She stabbed some woman in a bar, and she got found not guilty, but he said, I didn't have my mom around for 9 months. You know? That's crazy. Think about the childhood. Alright, you got a dad that's basically telling you, fuck every woman that you can, and if you don't, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. Dad's not home a lot because he's out screwing whoever he wants. Your mom is in jail because she's on trial for murder. Like, it kind of, then I started to understand, no wonder. I knew, I'd read the stories. We didn't have the internet back then, so it was just stuff from magazines and watching HBO and ESPN shit. That's how I'd get all my information. And I'd heard about all this stuff, but not to that extent. So, he's got the WBO belt. I know, there's 55,000 belts in boxing now. That's why people are so fucking confused all the time. Who's he? Oh, he's the IBC Intercontinental Champion. It's almost like the fucking All-Star Wrestling, right? IBC, what the fuck? I don't know. Who knows? Who cares? He's a champion. He's won by 8. Anyway, so he signed an $8 million contract. They were going to open this new MGM thing in Las Vegas. But this was, the next fight would be in a year. His management team got worried. What are we going to do for a year? We can't even corral this guy for 3 weeks. How in the hell are we going to keep him corralled for a year? So they schedule a fight. See the look on my face? He got clobbered by Ray Mercer, okay? I could live with that, because I would find out that Ray Mercer is still, to me, one of the toughest fucking boxers ever. I can live with that, alright? You did steroids, and you ran out of gas. If you'd have just fucking trained properly, you could have got through it. Anyway, never mind. So they scheduled this fight with Michael Bent, hometown, and he got beat first round. And then his friend said, the night before the fight, there's Tommy. They were at a concert. It was like he's drinking, pounding beers. He woke up with a hangover, and he's fighting that day. See, here's the thing, and I'm not trying to totally destroy Michael Bennett here. You know what? Tommy didn't take him seriously, and he beat his ass for it. You know what? Tommy Morrison's a better fighter than Michael Bennett. I don't care. And I'm going to bring this up. This is all about Vitaly Klitschko here. Michael Bennett beats Tommy Morrison, gets the WBO belt. Who does he fight next? Herbie Hyde. Herbie Hyde Who knocks him out? My man, right back here, Vitaly Klitschko. It's weird when I think about that. Obviously, it didn't happen. But think about that. What if Tommy Morrison would have won that and fought Herbie Hyde? And then Tommy Morrison versus Vitaly Klitschko? I don't think I could ever watch that fight. I really don't. It just kind of makes me feel bad when I think about it. Anyway. So, Tommy's down and out again. And they mentioned this. Al Bernstein's like, look, got beat by Michael Bent, but you still got a guy here that people will pay to see fight. He's right. You know, he's like, he's got to get a few fights and get some people behind him again. You know, he's still young. He's like 26, 27 at the time. And what happens? He gets a big fight with Razor Reddick, which was a fucking unbelievable fight. Tommy Morrison lands this left hook on Razor Reddick, and you're like, how does Razor Reddick even get back up from there? He wins, and he ends up fighting Lennox Lewis. And I'm going to make a quick confession here, and I really don't want to. Lennox Lewis is the only fighter that I seen Tommy Morrison in a fight with where I knew he had no shot. And I hate Lennox Lewis, okay? I really do. He was a good fighter, but I'm sorry. He just annoyed me. Anyway, Tommy Morrison was a big dude, but Lennox Lewis is even bigger. You know that, and they talked about this. You know, the new era of those super heavyweights that were 6'8", 250 pounds. Hell, the Klitschko's, they're a part of that. I get that. But that was the only fight where I seen him fight. I'm like, fuck, he has no chance. And it was funny before the fight, and they showed that the clip. Jim Lampley and Larry Mercer are talking on HBO. Jim Lampley says, did you ever think, after all that we've seen from Tommy Morrison, that he would end up in a fight? Because he was fighting for the title. You know, that's the beauty of boxing. You know, yeah, your career can be over, you know, in one night, and then 2 years later you're fighting for a title again. And Larry Merchant said, no, but yeah, it's not surprising, because they always mention a couple of times, you know, he's a one-trick pony. He still depends on the left hook, but it's the best left hook in the heavyweight division. And whatever, if you want to say that he was a one-trick pony, that's fine. Either way, in my mind, if he would have really focused and been serious about training, I really do. Lennox Lewis, I don't know. It's just one of those things where you see it and you're like, fuck, Tommy. Just had no shot. This is when it starts getting sad. Boy, this is a long video here, huh? Sorry. I told you, in depth. Arthur Weathers. By the way, a little story on Arthur Weathers. I don't know if anybody remembers this. Now, I don't know if this record is the record anymore. He got knocked out quicker than any fighter in the history of boxing. It was like 10 seconds. Jeremy Williams, who was from Iowa, by the way, came out in the center of the ring, bam, hit him with one punch, he was out. It's like 10 seconds. Anyway, scheduled to fight him, and he wouldn't get the test. They get blood tested before every fight, take a physical. Well, there's a reason he didn't. He finally did. Tony Holden, the manager, said, dude, go take your blood test so you can do this fight. Tested positive for HIV. And when they got it, the guy called Tony Holden and he said, don't tell anybody. Just come down here, tell you. He's like, he's HIV positive. And he's like, I found Tommy. And he said, I didn't sugarcoat it. I looked at him and said, Donnie, I don't know what to tell you. I tell you this, but you tested positive for HIV. And that's when all these people, like, I'm not saying all of his friends, but a couple of those friends that, you know, were there with him when he was buying all the drinks, and probably the women, fucking cocaine, whatever. No one's around. He's all by himself. And that manager, you could tell it really upset him. He was like, I'm looking at this young guy who's 27, 28 years old, and it's over. I mean, you can't be a fighter. You're HIV positive, you know? And of course, then he held the press conference, and he says in the press conference, don't look at me as a hero. I don't want anybody to look up to me as a role model. I lived a reckless life, made some terrible choices, and that's that, you know? And I remember when I heard it, I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. It was shocking. And, you know, Magic Johnson had it. This is when we were all really first starting to figure it out, and realizing the effect it had on the people that have it and who they affected, you know, their family. And so they had this hotline for, because Tommy said, hey, if you've been in contact with me, I encourage you to go get tested. And they had this hotline, and the one guy said, and of course these women get tested for free, just tons and tons of women that he had slept with, you know? And they tested both of the Dons. Neither one of them tested positive, which is a good thing. And they took his sign down. He had a sign in Jay, Oklahoma, you know, home of Tony Duke Morrison. Once he got that HIV positive test, they took the sign down. They talked to a lady that, like, at a gas station restaurant. She's like, just everybody left him. He was all alone. And it is so sad. And then they talk about the two Dons. He was married to both of them at the same time. And even the trainer guy said, yeah, we said it was the tale of the two Dons. He went, and one of them, he was married in one state, and the other one he took across to another state and married her. And it just kept showing you that he couldn't help himself. He couldn't stop himself. He couldn't say no to any of this. Then, so to think of another career for him, broadcaster. He did a couple fights, and Tony Holden says he was good, got good reviews. What happened? After a second fight, he got arrested for an OWI. So then the next thing, he went to a school, and he talked to a school. He wanted to inform people about HIV. And his one wife, Dawn, said he went to the school. Kids loved it, took pictures with him. He was great talking to him. Leaves the school, gets another OWI. And that's really how the last part of his life was. He fucking hooked up with this dingbat woman. I didn't write her name down because, you know what, it's irritating what she did to him. He got to a point where it wasn't HIV. She convinced him he got infected from a bug bite. And this one friend was talking about where they went to this hospital. He's like, what are you doing? Getting implants. Got implants in his biceps and his chest, and you could see it. It's like, it doesn't fucking look right. And he probably lived, and I said that, I know I'm saying a lot of stuff I said in the podcast, but he lived like a year and a half longer than he had to in fucking pain. I have Fight Night Champion. It's a boxing game, video game on Xbox 360. He's on that game, which, thank God. But there's an interview on there with him, and you can see this is when it started kicking in. It is so fucking hard to look at him. Yeah, this guy that was like 220 pounds, he looks like he weighs about 130, and it's on the internet. Just go look at those images. And, you know, his one friend said it's so terrible, he didn't know how to handle it. Like, they took it away from him, the one thing he was good at. And I get that. Alright. Try not to be the fanboy here. I understand. The HIV was his fault. And he admitted to that. Not taking shit seriously and partying. And my whole thing is because there's always these fucking idiots, I know, on Twitter and YouTube. Fuck him. Who gives a fuck? Fuck him. Stupid fucker, you should have wore rubber. What would you have done at 22, 23 years old? You'd been in a movie. A bunch of women want you. You think before you throw all your stones and fucking run people in the ground, you don't know how you would react to that situation if you were in that situation. You don't. 22, 23, and you got all these women fleeing themselves at you. He made some bad decisions. But to just say this guy, those reviewers, he didn't deserve 90 minutes. The fuck he didn't. Yeah, and a lot of those guys tell you, it's like he was so likable. We tell him, hey, you gotta focus on boxing. You can't be running around and fucking everything inside. And he tell you, you're right, I gotta focus. And you wanted to believe him because you liked the guy. And I just said he didn't deserve to die like that. He didn't. And that bitch that's what made me mad. She pretty much brainwashed him. This guy, I'm telling you, the pictures, the images are tough for me to watch. First time I watched it, I said this in the podcast too, I fucking cried. I don't know this guy from Adam. I didn't. But I know that he was loved by a lot of people. And there's a reason for that. You can't be a total asshole and not have all these people that care about you, And of course, he has the two sons. They're both fighting heavyweight division. Trey Lip, Morrison, Kenzie Witt, Morrison. Obviously, they have different moms. Better bet your ass I'm cheering for them. And that's just how it is. It really is a great movie. It is a sad ending, but it's worth watching. It sucks that a guy this talented, he really could have been something. It's the tragic, whatever you want to call it, the tragic American story of a dude that had everything, kind of pissed it away. But have a little respect. Don't totally, yeah, you only got AIDS? Well, fuck. Who cares? Shouldn't have fucked a bunch of whores. It's a stupid mentality. I think most people understand it. There's always idiots. I know that. So, I love it. Obviously, I've watched it five times. And, yeah. I just wanted to give it the proper review that I did on the podcast. Check it out tonight. Alright? I'm out.